In fact, you'll understand that even some American experts admit that Trump often speaks inconsistently. No one understands what he's thinking or what he wants. Trump himself has said that his tactic is to mislead everyone.
From Putin's own economic forum stage, Iran is taking a swipe at a confused Trump, using a high-profile Russian platform to question whether the U.S. president has any clear strategy left. No one knows what he wants, Iran's ambassador Qasem Jalali says, openly mocking Trump's style as deliberately misleading and suggesting even American experts cannot read his next move. As U.S.-Iran talks stall yet again, Mojtaba's envoy in Moscow is targeting Trump personally, framing his shifting positions as a key reason why the diplomatic process keeps dragging on. From the SPIEF podium, Qasem Jalali also slams Israel's strikes on Lebanon as criminal, accusing Tel Aviv of ruthless, unjustified attacks that trample international law while the world looks on. As a fragile ceasefire holds by a thread, Tehran is openly questioning Trump's strategy, hinting that a new generation of Western leaders has made the global order too unpredictable to trust.
Yes, we actually had very productive economic meetings. I met with the esteemed Fursenko, an aide to the Russian leader, Mr. Putin. I also had discussions with some of the deputy ministers of the Russian government and regional heads across Russia. Our main focus was on trade and economic cooperation. In fact, you'll understand that even some American experts admit that Trump often speaks inconsistently. No one understands what he's thinking or what he wants. Trump himself has said that his tactic is to mislead everyone. That's his approach. It now seems clear to many what kind of world we live in, how we should plan and think, and what we can rely on. And, frankly, you can't rely on much. We recognize that political processes are still ongoing, and that a new generation of political leaders has emerged, leaders we cannot depend on. International norms have, in many ways, been disregarded by these same leaders. You will have seen that the Iranian foreign minister, Mr. Arachi, has explained the situation thoroughly. He pointed out that if we are to agree on a ceasefire and lasting peace, it must be inclusive of all regional parties, including Lebanon. However, we understand that the Israeli regime continues to violate these principles, periodically launching attacks on Lebanon from all fronts. These attacks are essentially ruthless and inhumane actions, carried out without any justification. We see this as a blatant breach of international law and norms. Naturally, such actions amount to criminal behavior.
Meanwhile, Putin publicly defends Iran, insisting that Tehran never asked Moscow for weapons and that Russia has not supplied arms, even as he acknowledges close cooperation and shared interests. The Kremlin chief blamed the West for killing the nuclear deal and called the recent strike on Iran a tragedy, saying that tearing up IAEA-backed agreements helped push the region to this bloody point.
I do not see any provocations from Iran. It seems to me that, at one time, we agreed and adopted the relevant agreement on the Iranian nuclear program, and everything was under IAEA control. But unfortunately, the situation then developed according to a different scenario, which led to today's tragedy, to the strike on Iran and to losses, including among the civilian population. We know very well that relations have worsened between neighboring countries, which, of course, worries us greatly, because we have very good, friendly relations with the Arab world and with the Gulf countries. And we always, I spoke about this yesterday as well, we always urge our Iranian friends, in our conversations with them, to refrain from striking the territory of neighboring states. Yet their response is clear. They say, "We were attacked, our children are being killed. They killed the leadership of the country. So what should we do?" We are forced to respond in this way. In this sense, the situation is not easy for us. We have very good relations with Iran. We are neighbors, and we also have very good relations with the Arab countries. And, frankly speaking, this puts us in a difficult position. We keep in touch with Washington, Tehran, and Tel Aviv. I have no reason to speak of any misconceptions on the part of Mr. Trump. He is a mature person, a very experienced politician, and it is unlikely that anyone has the opportunity to exert any external influence on him. Israel's concerns are well known. They are connected with its perception that Iran is striving to create nuclear weapons, although Iran has repeatedly said in the past, and continues to say now, that it has no such plans. We have no reason not to believe this, because we also have no evidence that Iran is trying to create nuclear weapons. But Israel has such concerns. And the main problem is the absence of trust between the sides. In this regard, I would like to point out that we are in contact with the Americans and the Israelis on this issue. Everyone keeps assuring us that the shells that fell near the station did so accidentally. Everyone assures us that this is an accident and that it will not happen again. I have no reason to think we are somehow being misled. We have talked many times with the Israelis about this, and we see both their concern and their readiness to ensure the safety of the nuclear power plant in Bushehr. By the way, the situation at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant is completely different, where Ukrainian troops constantly shell the plant facilities or, recently, have completely lost their heads and struck directly at the reactor. Thank God, there were no serious consequences. The reactor was not damaged, but of course it was shut down. Overall, the situation there is very dangerous. There is spent fuel and so on. If those containers are damaged, then the question becomes very serious. Where will all this lead? It is by no means guaranteed that the consequences would affect only the Russian Federation. They could also affect Europe. Therefore, the Europeans, who encourage any actions of today's Kiev regime, should think very carefully about this and think about their own security, which was clearly and very precisely mentioned by the head of the IAEA, Mr. Grossi. Information is always available. Some modern surveillance and control systems are dual use. I think that the Iranians, I do not know this for certain, but they could obtain information not only from our satellites, but also from others, from commercial satellites that very easily and simply provide such data as a product on a commercial basis. As for weapons, Iran did not ask us for them, and we have not supplied any weapons to Iran. Iran ensures the internal stability of its society. This is an obvious fact, and after the start of hostilities, some in the West believed that now Iran would collapse from within. But no, that analysis turned out to be wrong. On the contrary, the situation we are observing is one of consolidation of Iranian society. You are probably aware of this. I do not know. A month ago, perhaps a bit more, when the conflict had just begun and the first strikes took place, the Iranian leadership called out, "Life for Iran." Within a week, 5 million people, and now more than 10 million, voluntarily expressed their willingness to give their lives for Iran. This says a great deal. The Indian Army largely uses equipment of Russian manufacture. This developed traditionally back in Soviet times. Our cooperation with India, as with our other partners, is not subject to political conjuncture. No one can tell us, "Do not supply to India." No one has ever said this to us. We will do what we consider necessary for ourselves, and we will always fulfill our obligations to our partners, especially to such partners as India. We work in this way, according to these principles, and we will continue to do so.